There are a lot of businesses out there that'll use Web 3.0 lingo such as blockchain, crypto, AI, and they'll use it more as a marketing play, not really as a solution that solves problems for customers like you and I. So my next guest is a consultant. She's actually a tech consultant that helps businesses integrate Web 3.0 solutions in practical ways that actually solve problems. In this episode, she gives us a little background of some of the customers she worked with. In fact, she tells a story on how she helped a business raise $1 million in about 2.5 hours. That's a fun story. And then we talk about how businesses can correctly use Web 3.0 to actually grow their business. So if you want to learn more about Web 3.0, this is a good one. Please welcome Alexandra Nicorici. Alexandra, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Hi.
Yes, good to have you here. So why don't you kick us off and tell us about your background?
So I'm Alex. I have been working for the last 12 years for early stage tech startups from all around the world, most times being the only hire in the marketing team, let's say. So work very closely with CEOs and very small teams to kind of take startups off the ground. Some of the things that I was like most proud of, let's say, and I really like to kind of bring this on, is that I helped a marketplace to become like number one on their niche. It was like they were listing co-working spaces and they became number one in less than 12 months, which was quite an achievement for us with like zero marketing. So that was quite an interesting story. And one of the other things that I'm very proud of was helping a startup from Romania to fundraise 1 million euros in 2.5 hours. That's also another story for another day. And about like 2.5 years ago, I got into Web3 totally by mistake. I was coming from a really bad burnout. A year and a half with this startup that we fundraised that I was just telling you about. And I got COVID. I was so happy that I don't have to see anybody for a couple of weeks. And there were some friends of some friends that were trying to get me to work for the startup of theirs. And I told them like, hey guys, like I would love to help you, but I know nothing about Web3. And then they said, look, like we know you've done like really big events before. Help us out with some like mini hackathons for some developers. That's like, it's not really Web3. It's something that you know already to do. And I said, yeah, okay, maybe I'll work part-time. And then I ended up working full-time. And then I think a month and a half in, they told me like, hey, we're moving the entire team to Barcelona. Do you want to come? It wasn't actually a choice. I had to go. But I've been wanting to go there for a very long time. So I said, okay, let's do it. And then they kind of sent me to Avalanche Summit last year, which was happening in Barcelona. And I think that was actually the moment for me, which really opened my mind and towards like what else is out there in Web3. And I think the rest is history. I think Web3 is right now a rabbit hole for me. The digger I deep, the more I find. It's a never-ending story. There's so much to learn. It's so fascinating. A lot of people actually ask me like, why do you like Web3? Well, I like it because it's so new and it's so innovating. And I think that's something that's and a bit unpredictable, which I think it's something I weirdly like, let's say, especially as a marketer. And I got into some Web3 women communities. Shifi is one of them, an amazing educational platform for women in Web3 and non-binary folks. And then last year in November, to kind of show that I have more skin in the game, I launched my own podcast, Web3 Out of Ordinary, a Web3 marketing podcast. I try to bring forward like marketers and founders to talk about like how they build in Web3. The thing is that right now we're in a bear market, so conditions are a bit not very
volatile
in our favor, let's say. But at the same time, there are a lot of companies that I speak to and I can see a lot of growth. Everybody's like growing steadily and I can see everybody's preparing for like what's up to come. And this gets me very excited.
Yes. And we're going to talk about Web3 here in a second. You actually, I didn't know this about you, but some of these highlights here, I do want to touch on. You said you want to talk about those on another day. I'm like, no, we're gonna talk about those today. The first one was you helped a marketplace go to number one. Can you tell us what is the company and what is the ranking systems, like number one in search engines or number one in the country? Maybe give us a little context on that.
So the company is called coworker.com. I actually ended up there because I know we're going to talk about like anything like startups and maybe a lot of founders are listening to that. The way I got hired there, it's a pretty funny story. I used to live in Malaysia for 2 years, and one of my ex-colleagues was like a founder of this company. She told me, I don't need your CV. I've already worked with you. I know who you are. Can you do this personality test? I did a personality test. She's like, you're hired.
Hmm.
So that was it. And basically, what one of the things that they did very well is that they didn't spend any money on marketing. The only thing that they did very well was that they invested in SEO because they were trying to rank in like the to be like number one results on Google when you were looking, for example, for a co-working space in Bucharest or LA or New York or stuff like this. And basically, we would get a lot of co-working spaces on the platform that would get qualified leads because it was no advertising, so everybody would just get there from Google. You know exactly that they were people that were looking specifically for a co-working space. They wouldn't have just ended up there by mistake. So basically they became a leading platform worldwide. They had over 12,000 co-working spaces out of like 14,000 that were existing worldwide. That's kind of the numbers that I'm comparing it
Sure.
to, or like why I'm saying it was number one.
So it became number one in search engines?
Yes, and they
Or
were the platform that was listing the most co-working spaces in the world, and they were attracting the most or the biggest number of people like looking for a co-working space. So it was a marketplace. It was like a B2C
hmm.
somehow.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, they were definitely getting qualified leads from like both sides and trying to make a match basically between the two parties.
And did you help with the SEO strategy, or was there like another marketing strategy you helped with?
I help with biz dev and partnerships. Like, so I was onboarding like
There you go.
big chains and smaller co-working spaces. I was acting as an account manager. And one of the things that I really liked about that team was that even if like we were all working remotely, I think in like 6 countries from like Canada to Thailand, so like quite around the world. But we would every time like there was an opening or like every time there was a place where like they couldn't cover within like the role that they had, they would ask me or like somebody else from the team like, hey, would you like to take on this? Like, I know you're interested in SEO, for example. We were working with a third party agency that was also doing like a lot of like technical SEO and so on. So that was something a bit more hands-on
Hmm.
stuff that needed to be done. But the strategy was simple, like rank as number one as much as possible for like as many cities as possible, especially the tier one ones.
Gotcha. So what really moved the needle in that business? Was it the partnerships more with other companies, or was it more the SEO?
It's a chicken and the egg question,
Okay. Okay.
especially for a marketplace. But to be totally honest with you, I think like if I were to rank, I
Mm.
think having more co-working spaces on the platform in as many cities as possible drew the people that wanted to book a space.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. I know with a lot of marketing strategies out there, especially new entrepreneurs get into like right away, they think about, okay, so I got to be doing advertising on like Google or YouTube or even Facebook. And I tell a lot of startup, like, don't spend money. There are more creative ways you can bring in leads. And sure, SEO is a play. I always found SEO from my perspective, it's the long play. Like it's good to put it in place, but you're not going to really see the results for like 2, 3 years. That's based on my experience. But the partnerships, like connecting with other people, other businesses, that I found is the most creative way and can be the fastest way to bring leads into a business.
For sure. And I think okay, I haven't really done much like Web2 stuff, let's say, in like 2 years. But
Hmm.
from what I remember, like I think it's this partnership side. I think it's totally underutilized. You can see it with like really big brands, but like smaller companies, they don't do it as often as they should. Whereas in Web3, you really see that flourishing, which is very exciting to notice and to see what kind of synergies can happen between like two companies like which are pretty much at the same level or like very similar.
Right on. As mentioned, we're going to jump to Web 3.0 here in a second. Another question here. I have to ask, did you say you helped a startup raise 1 million euros? Was it 1 million
Yes.
in 2 hours, correct?
2.5 hours,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. How was that achieved?
Um, Brand awareness again,
Were you
not
using
advertising.
social media, or how did you get the brand
Um,
awareness so quickly?
Long story short, it was actually a year in the making, but we didn't know it will lead to that place. So
Okay.
long story short, I got hired in the beginning of 2020, 2 weeks in my role. It was like very early stage startup. They received like 200,000 euros to kind of move a bit to have a proof of concept. COVID hit 2 weeks before, like in my job, we were supposed to launch like a big campaign with like 100,000 euros. And basically, we couldn't do anything because nobody was moving. It was like a home renting app. So imagine, like, we were absolutely
Sure.
stuck. And basically, what we did, we launched a CSR campaign. We tried to give away some like money for housing for like medical staff. Then they need to like leave from home because maybe they had like some sick relatives or like kids or something like this. And basically, a lot of like media picked it up because like right at that specific moment was like a lot of media trying to cover a lot of like this kind of initiatives. We did that. We managed to get about like a 100 people. So like the majority of the places that we found were donated by people that found about us from radio or from the TV. So it wasn't really, I think we only spent like 80 euros for like 3 months, which was like absolutely insane, even if like the initial budget and like in the press release was like $10,000.
Yeah.
So it was like very little cost for us, but like I think it brought us some visibility. And then they did a business model switch. So instead of like spending all this money on advertising in the summer, we grew the team. We played around with like some campaigns. They were basically trying to figure out like what would be the best way for them to monetize. And we were doing, I think, was very smart. We were like launching a press release, mostly because Bucharest or Romania, it's a smaller country, right? It's not like the US or like, I don't know, Russia or whatever, like where it would need like a lot of force, let's say, to be for this information to be pushed. And we used to do like a press release every month and a half, every 2 months, with like some pretty big numbers. In the summer, for example, we announced that we have under management apartments of like an in total value of like over $20 million. So that was like, I think it also drew some attention. So people were watching us, right? And like right now in the CE, there's a crowdfunding platform for tech startups. And when we decided to launch there or like to get listed, a lot of VCs, like local VCs, the CEO was already like talking to a really big like Polish fund, but like a lot of the local VCs were like, I want a piece of this. The cool thing on that platform was that you could get tickets as small as like 2,500 euros. So like you didn't have to have like a lot of money. But basically half of the money was raised through like VCs that were like, I want to chip in, I want to chip in, I want to chip in. And the other half was raised in those like 2.5 hours by everybody. I think it was a herd movement, let's say, because it was like, oh my god, this seems to be like the next big thing. The CEO also had a lot of credibility because he's sold like two big companies before. He replicated something like Uber-ish before it got into like Europe and stuff. In Saudi Arabia, they actually went. I'm heading to Web Summit next week, and they actually got there with a booth. And somebody from Saudi Arabia was like, "I'm gonna fund your company, like come and replicate this in there." And that's what they did. So he had like a lot of credibility. And people were like, well, if you made it before, I'm pretty sure you can make it right now. So here's the money. So I
Gotcha.
think that helped quite a lot. And the funny thing was that they gave us like a PR kit, let's say, telling us like, you should go on TV, you should do this, you should like do a press release and so on. And I'm like, unless I do a big PR stunt, there's absolutely nothing I can do at this moment, because everything that you're telling companies to do before the listing, we've been doing it for last year. There's like nothing we can do. But happily that proved to be in our favor, and we raised the money that we needed. So that was a nice story to tell.
Yeah. And just to kind of summarize here, what I'm hearing is probably about a solid year of kind of PR, different activities, getting the word out. And then you get to this crowdfunding platform, and it took 2.5 hours to raise the the 1 million euros. So the big lesson there is what I would learn from this is definitely build some PR, get some buzz out there, talk to other people. It sounds like a little paid advertising was happening, very small amount, which is nice. And then you do the crowdfunding. I think that's a really smart play because I see people going to like Kickstarter and whatever, crowdfunding platform is popular here in the States. Indiegogo is another one. And people, they don't build any buzz at all. And then they go on the platform. It's like, no, I would actually try to get some momentum before, and then you can kind of see a bigger movement happening. I know, like Product Hunt, we're going to go on Product Hunt soon for the Ticker mobile app. And what we're starting to do is build a little buzz leading up to that, kind of prime the pump, if you will, like, because we want people to be excited about that event. And then it's not like they hear about it the day of and now go like it's one of those, for the audience here, it's one of those platforms where you upvote, or it's like their version of a like, like a Facebook like. More upvotes you can get, the more they will promote you to their network. So anyway, that's the takeaway I have on that strategy. Raising money, we're raising €1 million in 2.5 hours.
I think like the power of branding or brand awareness is so underestimated, and people were like, I think most people don't really think about it, and like everybody just wants to push money into like PR
Yes.
or like pay PR and so on. It doesn't always work. And it might work if you have a lot of money, but if you do it smart and if you do it like a lot in advance to the moment that you have to like raise or like launch or whatever, I think it will cost you less money and you might have like much better results. So I think I'm such a big fan of brand awareness, and I know nobody wants to talk about it, and everybody just talks about it from like a very theoretical point of view. But like I've seen it happening like many like time and time again, and I really believe in the power of it.
Right. Yeah, totally agree. This podcast episode is sponsored by Ticker. Ticker is a platform that helps you manage your own investments with confidence. Check this out. Let's search for Apple. You can see Apple is on sale. That's looking good. Score is 61 out of 100, and margin of safety is 75%. Higher the score, the safer the investment, and the higher the margin of safety, the higher potential returns you can make. In this case, you can see the share price is 175 as of the recording of this video, and the upside potential, the fair value, is 398. All right, let's look at a different stock. We'll go to GameStop. In this case, GameStop is overpriced, scores 39 out of 100. That's not looking too good. And the margin of safety is 0%. Here's some other features within. You can create your own custom dashboard. I like to set up and take a look at the top gainers and losers in the last 24 hours. I also like to take a look at the top search stocks, but you can really customize the dashboard to whatever you want. We have stocks, ETFs, crypto. This is a big one. We have a watch list tool that allows you to add stocks to the watch list. And if anything changes, such as that score or margin of safety, you automatically get notified. I call it the set it and forget it feature. And then we have portfolio trackers and alerts. So if you're looking for strong stocks, want to avoid bad stocks, and learn how to invest, I invite you to join Ticker for free. All right, let's get into Web 3.0. So why don't you give us a little comparison? What is the difference between Web 2.0 and Web 3.0?
I think I always get caught in explanations around this question. One of the differences is the decentralization and the ownership part of it. I think in Web 2, you own something, but like there's a bigger entity that owns your data, for example, Facebook, Google, and so on. Whereas in Web3, they try to go a lot on decentralization, on protection of data, on ownership or of different pieces of a project. This is why people launch like NFTs and tokens, and crypto was launched. And I think that's one of the reasons why it has so much power, not because it can build you wealth over time. Of course, that as well. But I think the main driver for a lot of people, at least, was this ownership and the fact that they don't have to, they can do whatever they want with their money. And they don't need to like give anybody any explanation. So like they don't need to depend on like regulations given by the bank, for example, or anything like that. They can do whatever they want. So
Sure.
If you were to ask me, this would be the differences. And of course, Web3 has blockchain as a fundamental to everything that's being built. So I think this would be the differences in a nutshell.
Right on. And then one big one that I read a lot about is AI. How are businesses using AI to maybe run more efficient? Maybe I'm thinking of like sales, marketing, and operations. You can actually use AI for all three. But do you have any examples of some of the startups you've worked with recently that maybe made some mistakes with Web 3.0 and how they approach it?
I see this like quite a lot and quite all the time, mostly because it's a very, somebody actually called it recently, they call the Web3 a startup. And it is true. Web3 is a startup. So a lot of mistakes are happening there. And I think one of the biggest mistakes is like in Web2 as well. People don't know exactly what they want to build. They start with an idea, but they don't really know how to monetize it. But then like it doesn't really work the way they planned. They don't have enough money to execute it. So it's always a very tricky situation to get something off the ground. So if you were to ask me, this would be like the biggest mistake when companies are trying to build something. I have like a list of things that I think they should be done, or like why they're in the wrong, let's say. But I think this would be like one of the main reasons why like I think companies fail in Web3 as well. And of course, like you don't really know who they're serving. So it's basically the same thing that you've seen so far as well.
Do you think that people are like using the Web 3.0 buzzwords to kind of like power marketing, but at the end of the day, that they're not providing value? For example, I've seen businesses like a few years back, they're like, well, we use blockchain. Oh, that's cute, but what are you doing for the customer? Like what problem are you solving? Or like now I see businesses like powered by open AI or powered by AI. And it's like, that's great. You can get people excited for a moment, but what is it actually doing for the customer? Like what pain is it removing, or what efficiency is it increasing? So are you seeing some businesses kind of using the Web 3.0 lingo to kind of pump their marketing?
To be totally honest with you, I think like AI has been used like for a very long time, just to kind of draw attention. AI and machine learning was like so much used for like many years. And I do believe that blockchain was also used to kind of draw some attention, especially from investors and trying to raise money. But from what I'm seeing right now, like the latest trends that I'm seeing is that people that are really believers in Web3, like, and I'm talking about here the users, right? And I'm not only talking about like people who own crypto or NFTs. I'm talking about like anybody that would like to be part of this new industry, let's say, or this new era, whatever you want to call it. They really want utility. They really want to see that the products are actually being built with a purpose in mind. They don't want to see just buzzwords, because I think Web3 users are very smart and are very, you can't really fool them as fast as you could have done it like a couple of years ago. I think they're getting like a bit more elevated, more educated, which is very important. And I think they can sniff bullshit a mile away.
Yeah.
So if you're not really there for the right reasons, like I don't think your product is gonna stand. Probably you could ask me now, yes, you've seen a lot of fails. Like, is the FTX trial right now happening as well? Especially, I know in the States, it's like a really big thing. Everybody's talking about it on all the podcasts and newsletters and so on. But that went crashing because of course, his mistakes, but because of other market reasons as well. The initial idea was good, and it was like for a higher purpose. Now, exactly what happened with the handling of that money, that's a different story. But I think Web3 users are not really getting discouraged by situations like this to stay in the space. And of course, mostly because like Web3 is not just about crypto. So I think that's what keeps people there, and is kind of pushing founders and teams to build something more reliable and for like a longer term purpose in mind.
You know, I look at, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I look at like all the Web 3.0 buzzwords and what's hot. right now and I look at like crypto, blockchain, AI, NFTs, of everything I list there, where should a business really focus? Where do you think is the most opportunity for a business to really focus if you were to pick one of those?
It really depends on what you want to do, right? Like, what is your purpose? I think like I'm always getting asked this kind of questions, and I think they're very vague unless you know
Mhm.
what is your aim, like why you're starting this. If you ask me, this is not a good moment to like start an NFT project for many reasons. Even if I've seen projects like some of my friends actually a couple of days ago, they launched their second collection of NFTs. They sold out €500,000 in 77 seconds. So if you ask me, NFTs are still standing, they're still being sold, but not with the idea of like building wealth, more of the idea of like it's used as a utility token. So I think I would see a lot of utility tokens being or like a lot of companies building utility tokens in different ways. And I think this is what is going to keep the users there. And something else to be mentioned here as well is that I think it's a very important to understand if you're a Web3 native company, or if you're like building something just for the Web3 user, let's say, or like if you're starting from scratch, or if you're already like, if you have a business like Ticker, for example, you already have like a Web2 base, let's say,
Mhm.
but you want to get into Web3. That's a totally different approach. It's a totally different story. And I think this would be like some moments to really understand what is your purpose. Do you want to like grow your audience? Do you want to re-engage your audience? Do you want to like expand your product? Do you want to tap into new audiences to see if your product like fits into that? What is your purpose? And based on that, I think I would be able to give a better answer, case by
No,
case.
that's good. It does vary by business. I'll actually kind of call out Ticker in this case because we brought in two different Web 3.0 components. One is crypto, but we don't Ticker can't analyze a crypto coin because it's a coin, not a business. But we brought it into the ecosystem for the marketing play. So what I was saying earlier, kind of calling out businesses, I'm kind of calling out ourselves there. But the win is we bring in people who are really they're all about crypto, yet they don't know the difference between crypto and stocks. We bring them into the Ticker ecosystem and then we teach them like, hey, you can invest in crypto, try to go like, as we say, 5% or less of your net worth. You're going to get more reliable returns going to like nice, safe, conservative businesses, stocks. So that's the crypto play. But then we had to put some serious thought into how are we going to use AI in a meaningful way is, and you kind of alluded to that. It's like how do you bring it in so it's actually solving a problem? So we're actually I won't go too deep on this because I know this is more about you than me. But
Please, please.
I love your feedback here. We're bringing AI in to help with a tool called the 4M checklist or 4M confidence booster. And long story short, there are 4M's with investing. You want to start with the first M, which is the margin of safety. That's all the math part of investing. And that's unfortunately where a lot of people start and stop. But investing is more than just numbers. You got to understand the type of business, the competition, and the management. So the 4M's really just to kind of high level. You got the margin of safety is the first M. Second M is the meaning. Third M is the moat. And the last M is the management. The meaning is how does a business make money? How many revenue streams? How scalable are those revenue streams? The moat is how does it stack up against the competition? And then the management is what's the track record of the CEO? And doing that manually today it's actually time consuming. But if you can get a score of 80 or higher, that's really good. So we started doing some testing with AI, like, okay, so can the first M is done automatically by Ticker, but how do we use AI to do, steps 2, 3, and 4? And it took about 3, 4 months of testing and prompt engineering is really big to figure out like, okay, we can remove this pain from our customers. So it's been a long journey, but we're excited to launch that. But finally, it's like the one utility, like, okay, we can actually use AI in a meaningful way, not just to say, hey, Ticker's powered by AI. That's so superficial.
That's exactly what I wanted to say. That's like I feel like everybody's like using is saying AI, AI, AI. But at the same time, this AI needs to be connected to something, to a product, to an utility. To like, you can't just use AI like this, like it because it does nothing by itself. You need to connect it to something. And I think like lately, I'm seeing so much utility being pushed. And I think we were talking about it last time that like you haven't even had that like in the last 6 months, let's say. I think everything just absolutely exploded. And right now, at least to me as a marketer, it does make a lot more sense why, or not why, but like how it can be utilized by a bigger or like the vast majority of people. Because I think at the beginning it was like ChatGPT and everybody was like,
Yeah,
go get here
right.
and I telling you it's going to steal your job and so on. It's not
Mhm.
true. I think right now I can see a lot of utility and it does make a lot of sense. And for me personally, and I probably like a lot of people that are listening to this podcast as well, my purpose in life is to like make as not like as little work as possible, but like if I don't have to spend as much like 20 hours on something, I can spend 10, and then the other 10 I can spend it with like my friends and family. That would be best. And if I get the help of an AI to do like some of that work, I don't actually mind.
Yeah, like that's the thing is, how do you use AI to run more efficient? And there are a lot of cool ways you can use it. ChatGPT has been impressive with that notion, just a huge time saver. So yeah, like I'm with you. Like, do I want to work 20 hours? Do I want to cut that in half and do things I want to do outside of work? It's pretty obvious. Um, Very cool. On that, you mentioned something there I want to touch on. I did not prep you with this question, but what are your thoughts on AI taking away jobs? Do you think there's a threat in some way, shape, or form? What are your thoughts?
I don't think it's going to take anybody's job. And if you think AI is going to take your job, I think you are being left behind and you should really like step up. I'm a really, really huge believer in like continuous education. And I was kind of raised like that because like ever since I was in uni, there's a program in Europe called Erasmus, and like they basically send you like all around Europe to study for like a semester or a year and so on. And I think it was called like a lifelong learning program or something like this. And I think this kind of stuck with me for the like I'm an adult now. Like it's been like I don't know
Mhm.
almost 14 years ever since I went to Erasmus. But I think this kind of stuck with me, and I'm always trying to learn and to become better at what I do. Because especially I don't know how it is in the States, but like in this part of the world, you could see a lot of parents, and especially the generation of my parents, where, or like my grandparents, where they have worked a job for like 50 years. They didn't have to like become better. They just needed to do one thing. And this is exactly what they were doing every single day for like many years. But right now, I think it's a pivotal moment where like everybody needs to step up. And like, to me personally, this is very exciting. I wouldn't really be afraid of it. I would try to work as much as possible with the new technology. And I know there was a moment where everybody was like, oh my God, like technology is going to steal us
I
the
know.
jobs, steal the jobs and so on. But like, I know I can't remember, I was watching something where I was listening to a podcast, I can't remember. And people were saying, what about agriculture, for example? Like you see like new tractors, you can see like new like agricultural stuff, let's
Oh
say.
yeah, the egg industry is huge here in the States. Yeah,
Yeah, so but that's also tech, right? Like
right.
like you can't really go back to what you were doing like I don't know 50, 70 years ago when my grandparents were like taking care of the land with their horses and so on. Like you can't really sustain that like in 2023. And I think just taking that as a comparison, like you can really see that. I think the tech in general has had like a really huge and beneficial impact on what and how we live right now. And we're just very happy to see how it's going to get moving forward.
I'm 100% in agreement with you. There are people that talk about AI taking jobs. It's like, no, you need to embrace it to make your jobs more efficient. You can use it to serve more customers. Going back to the egg part, my wife, her family, they're farmers, and we're friends with a lot of farmers. And it's so cool how tech has helped that industry. For example, self-driving combines using GPS to go in these efficient rows, and some of the cornfields here or whatever crop you're growing, they can go on for miles straight. And if you're not dead on accurate, you can be swaying left to right and creating inefficiencies, and you don't even know it. Well, with GPS, you can be laser focused on a straight line and move in those straight lines there and back, get more work done, produce more yields. The list goes on. It's pretty cool stuff. And it's like, so if anybody says, oh my gosh, it's going to take my job, it's like, no, it's going to help you work more efficient and serve more customers. That's what it's going to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, right on. All right. That was a great discussion on Web 3.0, but we need to move into the rapid fire round so we can find out who Alexandra really is. If you can, try to answer each question in 15 seconds or less. You ready?
Okay, I'll try.
All right. What is your favorite podcast?
I think I would say my podcast, because like I can't really get like something else in my mind right now. But
you don't listen to any other podcasts?
I do, but like you asked me too fast. I listen to a lot of like Web3 stuff. So anything that's that's Web3 related, like I'm trying to get into that. There was one that I really liked, something about DAOs, like how to build a DAO or something. I really enjoyed that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. What is a recent book you read and would recommend?
I'm reading a book right now, but I don't think it's a bit tough. Let's say my therapist suggested that to me. But I think one of the books that I really enjoyed was, and I was actually talking about it on Twitter yesterday. And I'm going to say two. One is The Whistleblower by Susan Fowler. And she talks about like how about her journey at Uber. Very cool book. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, so like that's really easy read, let's say, because it's a lot of storytelling. And another very cool book, especially because I've seen yesterday that WeWork filed for bankruptcy, is called The Cult of We, where it also treats about like how WeWork basically grew and failed.
I would be very much into both. I love stories on like corporate train wrecks, you could say, like The Bad Blood, Theranos, Elizabeth Holmes. I thought that book was great. And I think it's the Inventor. I could be wrong, on HBO. I just watched Super Pumped on Netflix. It's got Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but that's all about Uber and his demise within that company. Uber has not done great in the stock market either. But Whistleblower is one. You mentioned, what's the other book?
The Cult of We.
Cult of We. Yes, WeWork. I've watched multiple docu-series on that.
They're not really great, but the book is like really good.
Even better. See, I did enjoy. I think there's one on Hulu that was pretty good, but yeah, anyway, love it. Thank you for those recommendations. All right. Movie question. What is your favorite movie?
Sorry to disappoint, I don't like movies, but something that I really enjoyed recently, it's a series. I'm really big on series and reality shows. A series that I've seen recently on HBO, I actually finished Billions, which I really enjoyed. Yeah. I've also liked it's a mini series called Soil, and it's about this Moroccan guy whose father has a funeral home, and basically they're repatriating Moroccans because they have this thing where it says like they have to be buried in Moroccan soil and there, and he finds a new business idea to bring soil back to Belgium to bury these people. So it's quirky. I know like the story sounds weird, but it's very quirky, it's very funny, very witty, so really enjoyed it.
Is that on Netflix? It feels like a global production.
It's on HBO.
It is on HBO. Okay. Yeah. I know Netflix produces a ton of content outside of the States. HBO, I think, is starting to get into that, but yeah, cool. I'll add Soil here to my watch list. Okay. A few more questions. What is the worst advice you ever received?
Something that I've been complaining about lately is that I grew up with Gary Vee and this hustle culture, and like for like many years, like hustle. No woman wants to hustle, no man wants to hustle. I think you need to like really understand like what is your pace, where you are in life, and how you can take it from there. So I think this hustle thing wasn't really for me, and it took me about 10 years to figure that out.
Yeah, that was beaten over all of our heads for a while, and I agree. Not a fan. All right, flip that equation. What's the best advice you ever received?
Nike says, just do it. I think I'm a huge overthinker, and I think many people are. And because I overthink, it takes me forever to like launch something for myself, just to be very specific for myself. Like for others, I don't really have a problem to like come up with an initiative and like execute on that. But for myself, I just go like in a million parts and ways and so on. So I think the more I try to get over that and just do it, the better it gets.
Yeah. Analysis paralysis.
Basically fail fast and learn from it and move forward.
Yeah. Right on. All right. Last question here. Time machine question. If you could go back in time to give your younger self advice, what age would you visit and what would you say?
I think I would go to when I was almost 22, the first time I moved to Malaysia. I think it was a very weird time of my life. I had no idea where I was going, what's going to happen to my life. And I think I would give the best advice I could give myself was like build self-esteem and trust in like what I can do and like who I am in life. And I think it's the rest is history,
Nice.
basically.
All right. And where can the audience reach you?
Well, you can find me on Alexandra Nicorici on LinkedIn. I'm quite active there. You can find me on Twitter, or you can find my podcast on Out of Ordinary Podcast on any platform that you want.
We'll get all the links listed below, but thank you so much for being a guest. This was great.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This has been a really nice conversation and looking forward to speak again.
All right. Talk to you later. See ya.
Yep.